how I got to this picture was I literally went to Google Images and searched people faking, and first image pops up as this. Right? So if you haven't seen this movie, Harry Met Sally, this is the scene where she's in the cafeteria faking an orgasm. Right? And then she just goes on to continue eating her meal. And the most important thing that happens is, and the question you have to ask when you're coaching and you're trying to help someone grow, is are you coaching the real person or are you coaching the fake person? Tom said this brilliantly when he was giving his judging, that he wrote a blog post about, that how many times you put out signals of what you think you should be saying, what you think you should do, and you get coached on it, and someone gives you feedback on it, and your response is, this is in your head narrative now, it's not really what I feel, it's not really what I actually meant to say or do, but no, but it is what you said, and so people are reacting to it. And you don't realize over time, you're constantly getting coached on the fake version of you. The version that acted, the version that lied, the version that's hiding. And so as a result of it, you never improve. In sports, you'll see whatever sports coach always builds a team or the starting lineup, they always have tryouts. No matter how much, coach, I'm really good at this, I'm excellent. All right, well, go on the field, I'd like to see what you can do. And they always observe first, and then they figure out what to do. This notion of observation being so critical. And observation usually goes with, people say listening, it's a better word, but I like the word Bridgewater had used, which is probing. Probing sounds awful, right? But the idea of active listening, where you're inquisitively questioning and whatnot to find out the pursuit of truth. You want to know, and the pursuit of truth, not on a product or image, but the person. Because if you know what the truth is, you can coach them. But if you start coaching the fake person, it's a waste of everybody's time. Which is why the notion of authenticity, vulnerability, the truth, radical transparency comes up a lot. So just some of the things that occurred, just to give you a sense of how fast things move at NextJump. While this academy is running, so this was Shwelan and Vaishali, who you saw on the first day in 10X. And they went and watched the video that day of themselves coaching, and they wrote us their reflective notes that day, and then we had back and forth. I printed the whole email chain. It'll be around 4 pages, so I just try to cut out parts of it. So Shwelan basically said we just finished watching ourselves and judging 10X. It was hard. She was trying to practice being concise. It took 3 to 4 minutes on average for every comment I made, which is way too long. Vaishali talked about what I wanted to say was awkward and difficult to watch myself giving feedback. The added pressure of academy, I already was very emotional going in. That showed up in the way I judged today. Coming out of it, I felt was a disaster. Right? Now, this is one of the things we'll talk about a lot, the role stress plays. And I know a lot of times we have a visceral reaction, stress is bad. But when training, stress is the single most important thing to train people. Coaching in front of all our employees is stressful. Coaching in front of all of you, then recorded, and then you get to go and judge them coaching on top of it, is even more stressful. You're shaking your head. But we're like, this is fantastic. Because it's not our revenue. This is not, it's important, but it's not as important as the other things that we do. Right? Your revenue in many ways is teaching the students. So what you do maybe in the teacher's lounge or whatever, I'm picking all the wrong examples.
We don't have lounges.
You don't have lounges. So there are things that are always more mission critical. And so how do you inject that level of stress? Then what happened back to some of the, so giving people the space to fail. So this was the emails back and forth. That leadership oftentimes is giving permission to do it wrong. A lot of people come and see us, especially day one, and say, oh my God, did you see the poor coaching they did at 10X? Did you see the poor coaching they did in Situational Workshop? Then they see day two, where you start to see how the senior people are being coached. You're like, this is better. And then you'll see something today after this, Product Oboe. So Oboe, I told you, we brought back into Academy. You were the first one to bring it back after a year of kind of cutting it out. Product Oboe, which you'll see at 12, we have never even shown to the rest of our company. So not only is it the first time putting it in Academy, it's the first time we're exposing it beyond MB21. So hopefully you'll enjoy. It's been very effective for us. So, but this is email chain after the notes from Shwelan and Vaishali. Shwelan wrote to Megan saying, thank you, Megan, love this, in quotes, give permission to share my feeling on the situation. And don't think you'll always get it right. It's such an early stage in training right now. And then she wrote, thank you, Charlie, sticks with me. Play safe is the fastest way to complacency, and complacency is pretty much equal to death. We'll talk more about that. I would rather be called out on being judgmental versus getting no reaction. Now this is a hard thing for people to juggle. I'd rather get dinged and be called arrogant, judgmental, than get silence. Silence you can't improve from. Even if you do it wrong, as long as you get feedback, corrective feedback, and oftentimes it's very hard to hear, you'll improve. So you need help to improve, and the fastest way sometimes to get help is to put out a strong point of view. So the back and forth, I mean, you won't even see all of it, which Roland was, don't stop. I know you're going to want to stop. Don't stop. It's not to say this is right. It's wrong. I'm telling you it's wrong. She knows it's wrong. But she will learn to dial down just enough. I always use an example, if you have speakers and you crank it to 10, if that's the highest level, you can't hear anything. It's too loud. But put it to 8.5, it's still loud, but you can now hear the words. And so the key is learning how to dial it back, but the only way you're going to learn how to do that is to first crank to 10. Part of the same email chain, right, talking about acceptance, right, that you cannot start your training unless you accept who you are. So I mentioned to Sharla on the bottom, the longer you don't accept it, fight it, hide it, deny it, it takes longer to start your training. Remember, we have the very best environment to train, to upgrade access to the very best coaches in the world. Why wait to start your training by denying, lying, fighting the starting point of who you are today? This is Vaishali's response was, I need to accept this, who I am, and start to work on that. Otherwise, I'll just stay in this complacency mode forever, and that's so scary. The fear of being judged is so strong in me that it shows up even with my interactions with Shrelon, which is supposed to be the safest place for TP. This is, so we're just, you can look at the dates. This is this Wednesday, back and forth, going into evening. What occurred and that you witnessed behind the scenes, there's a ton of use of everything, the video, the feedback, the insights. Then this gets shared, and now we're sharing with the company. Everyone who's seeing it will share it. Joelle and Vaishali are watching, saying, I can't believe you shared our emails. But like, we always say, like, you know, everything is open by default here, so everyone can learn. A lot of people do that, well, this is great insight I had with this interaction with this hypothetical person, you know, and they're like, well, can you tell me what it is? I can't quite give you the names. We're such a learning organization. We look at everything by default as open, and if you don't want it to be shared and open, then don't say it. So that's our default. There's always exceptions, but generally speaking. I want to quickly start by also sharing the story. This guy here in the picture, his name is Peter Gorman. So one of the things that Megan and I, we get this question a lot, who coaches you guys, right? It looks like, you know, it's top down. We sort of have a lot of coaching, but no one's giving us feedback. The reality is, if you saw the list of who coaches us and how much feedback we get and help and mentoring, it is the world's like best of the best. And the fortune we had in that is the more we gave, the more we got back. And so the ability to have them really take space in our office to come and, you know, like write their new books using us as case studies, sharing the most cutting edge stuff. I mean, have you ever met an author who came and told you that the book I spent 5 years writing was actually all outdated and garbage? And they don't want to tell you that because they have to sell the books. But they come and tell us that and tell us what they learned. So there's a lot of knowledge, and there's really a list of who doesn't coach us is sort of more apt question if you really want to ask it. But one of the individuals we met is a guy named Peter Gorman. Peter Gorman, amazing guy. He invented the heart rate monitor, the technology that goes in it. So Polar Tech, treadmills and whatnot. He made the technology to give you a sense of how successful he became through that. Bless you. He gets 10% of everything Polar Tech sells globally for 20 years. To get a sense of what that is, I think it's a $2 to $4 million royalty check every week for 20 years. Wow. Right? Did very well. Yeah. Then he went out to create a lot of other businesses and sold a lot of different things, built things. But one of the more interesting things he built more recently is called the Optigate, which is the test I think everyone went through the very first day you're here. And we call it the vitals test, very much like going to the doctor. If you tell a doctor I have an illness and I need meds or I need you to do surgery on my body, they'll tell you, let's take your vitals first. Always the vitals first. Because although I want to believe you, I don't fully trust you. I want to see what shows up. So we created and experimented Peter Gorman to create the vitals, but it's fascinating. We met Peter Gorman. I'll give you the story if you want over cocktails later or something. But long story how we started partnering and doing more work. But he, in 2 instances, got 2 people who were paralyzed neck down for 6 years of rehab and the best in the country and got them to walk in 90 days. And one's running a marathon. I mean, this is pretty crazy stuff, right? I mean, people call him like the miracle of Mayopac. He lives in Mayopac. And it's fascinating when you meet anybody like this, where every best medical technology and field is saying can't be done. You've had the best rehab. You're paralyzed for life. And this is the story of one of the individuals, a guy named Michael, brain trauma from a car accident. The plate in the brain then rusted or rotted, which then led to being paralyzed neck down. 6 years of the best rehab, and he just couldn't walk. And while Peter was on the track one Saturday walking around, he sees 2 giant men putting Michael on either arm, just dragging him across to give him fresh air. And so he stops and asks them what's happened. They explain the whole story. He says, come to my office, let me see if I can help. Now that Optigate is actually a combination of 2 technologies. It's the lens of the Hubble telescope that looks 1 billion light years away, but instead of looking billions light away, point at the human body, combined with lasers from ski racing. So when you measure ski racing, the real-time nature. So what they're doing is they're putting the lasers of the telescope, and they're able to measure what's happening in real time as you walk. And how we connected was that he talked about how physical balance is the most important thing. Because as a baby, you learn to walk, right? You finally gain balance, and then as an adult, eventually you will lose balance, and that's how life works. The cycle of gaining balance, losing it physically. And what he discovered was you can prevent most sports injuries, 90-something%, because you can see the injury occurring way before it shows up. Concussions, everything, because it shows up by losing physical balance way in advance of the injury. There's a crazy stories that, I'll show you, but there's so many of them that could go on forever, but here's a crazy one where the Olympic athletes of the US train 4 years, sometimes to compete for 30 seconds, right? So they obligated the US Olympic athletes before they got on the plane, so to go to a foreign country like China. And they arrived in China, and then they obligated them every day after the plane ride to see when they would be the exact same balance they had entering the plane to when they got off the plane. US Olympic athletes used to go to their destination 3 days before the day of their events. 3 days. They found in the obligating it took 5 days to get back to normal. The vibrations that you have in the plane screws up your balance enough that it takes 5 days to get back to normal. If you have trained for 4 years, right? And oftentimes the difference in gold and not even medaling is like a fraction of a second. Can you imagine the horror they realized they were doing? So all US Olympic athletes now travel 1 week in advance. Just to give you a sense of some of the use of technology. So you meet a guy like this, and he was talking about physical balance. Megan and I were talking nonstop about emotional balance. Confidence and humility, the balance of emotions was the key. You know, courageously vulnerable. Too much courage is reckless. Too much vulnerability is meekness. It's the combination of the two that was the key. So here we are, like we connect on this notion of balance being so important, imbalance being the worst thing that most problems occur from. Concussions, or what we find is bad leadership, bad decision making, unethical breaches, whatever you want to call it. All those things, bad things occur from imbalance. Balance is the key. He tells you about this guy. He tells me basically what he did. He brought him into his office in Mayopac. He put him on the treadmill, and he can't walk. So he had to have 2 people literally move his feet as he's just watching what's happening, right? Comes in every day for 90 days, just moving his feet, physically just because the guy can't walk. But he's watching on screen what Peter Gorman calls the second screen. The second screen is critical. It's the screen that tells you the truth. It tells you not what you feel is the right thing, but what is the right thing in balance. And the 2 color bars represent left and right feet. And obviously he could barely walk, so it's massively imbalanced. But as Michael watched what was right and wrong, he started to correct himself. In a course of 90 days, he started to walk on his own. And now he's running a marathon. Right? And you think it's crazy, only one person? Two people. And then you think, and so of course you meet a guy like this, and I'm like, well, how the hell's that happen? Right? Like, how does that work? And he's like, it's actually quite simple. He's like, Charlie, it's quite simple. The human body is wired to do the right thing. We are wired to do the right thing. We're wired to actually self-correct. Except when we don't know right from wrong, because it's oftentimes counterintuitive, we do the wrong thing. If you ever injure your right foot, you're going to keep all your weight off it. This makes it worse. You'll never heal unless you fight through the pain to rebalance it, and that's how you heal. But most of us do the counterintuitive thing, or we do what feels, the right thing, but the right usually is counterintuitive. And so, the second screen is how you correct physical imbalances. So when you think about emotional, character imbalances, what we found was this: the second screen, you don't need technology. The people around you know. The people closest to you know of every imbalance you have. And there's simple questions sometimes we ask people, like, Francesca, I know you feel like you are very humble, but if you went out there and asked some of your colleagues, what would they say? You're like, well, they'd probably say I'm arrogant, but you'll start to justify it. It's amazing even she knows, but it's like she knows what they know. It's fascinating the people around you, they know. And so feedback, the people around you, that's the second screen. But if they lie to you, right? If you are lying to them, what happens for most of us is our second screen is you in the middle with people around you. It could be one person, it could be up to 5 people, maybe more. You create an echo chamber of BS. Did I do well? Oh, you did phenomenal. I think I didn't do so well. No, you did phenomenal. Everything goes into like this. You hear what you want to hear. You put out what you want to hear. If I said, which actually I did say, I stayed up all night. You worked so hard on this presentation. Now can you give me some feedback? I mean, you have to be a real jerk to say it's really bad, right? Because they tried so hard, they cared so much and whatnot. So it's like, but that's how we tend to put out signals. I'm not even going to go through all this because I want to spend more time on the whiteboard and then try to help both groups go into what you can adopt. This is the outcome process. And we talk about the drunk line because we're all drunk. We're all drunk because when you are physically drunk, you can't obviously drive the car or whatnot. When you're emotionally drunk, right, which is what most of us are, there's no perfect state. All of us, there are triggers that will just get us emotionally imbalanced, emotional tilt. How well do you drive a team, an organization? How well do you drive yourself when you're drunk? And so the entire discussion we'll spend time on is all around 2 levers: awareness and practice. And it's not always in sequence, although this is the right sequence. Sometimes when you're stuck on awareness, you have to just go and act and do something, which will give you awareness. So we'll give you kind of 2 and 2. So awareness and practice, and then 2 things in how to help you get more awareness, and 2 ways to actually practice. So this is kind of the crazy version of that same diagram. And the more important part of it is to zoom in. Well, you can take all these and look at it if you like, or use it for fire kindling. If you are in the middle, the idea that we say you is you, like you're the same person everywhere. It shows up everywhere, at home, at work, in culture, in how you work out, in how you are with your friends. It shows up everywhere. However, the truth of who you are shows up only under stress. If you haven't slept, you haven't eaten, if you feel stressed, that is the truth of who you are. And the reason why this is important is not to say it's not truthful of who you are when you're not stressed. It's just that if you want to train, you need to understand the worst state and then train up. If you actually say, well, that's a wrong read of me, because once I get 8 hours sleep and I've had a good meal and I just got bonused and I just got showered with compliments, I am so good at being humble, good at listening and engaging. This is true for everybody, by the way. But then, if you take some of those things away and the bad version of you comes out, you want to justify that that's why. Except, imagine if you start to see that as that is the truth of who you are, and from there we will train. this is Simon Sinek's president, Kim, gave a presentation here, and she shared this thing saying, who you are in your worst day is who you truly are, right? So I took the picture, I loved it, shared it. Then over Twitter, someone writes a failure, right? But they're like, that's who I am, because I'm on worst day, I'm a failure. And so I wrote saying, no, not a failure, that's a starting point for our training. Yes, thank you, needed to hear that. So how to start to change your mindset from seeing yourself as a failure, the worst of you, saying, no, how do you accept it and start to see that as where we start training? This idea of throwing free throws, right? I don't know who's good at basketball. It sounds like you're pretty good. No? Maybe? So if I gave you 13 weeks, which is really 91 days, which is 1/4 in the business world, and I'm going to give you 2 practices per week, what's your free throw percentage, right? I think it's supposed to be one of the higher percentage shots where we generally do well, right? But this is not the truth of the score, because the truth of free throws in real life looks like this, right? Like screaming stress, and this is your true free throw percentage, not the quiet, calm arena and you get to practice and throw. This is your true score. Being able to score and get free throws through the hoop when it's this stressful. So what's your true free throw percentage? And that's an important number to know. I'm going to show you a couple of things, but this was just actually Wednesday. It was going back and forth. This is John Hilliard in Boston. I love this, which he said he found it from some movie, I think. Fear is not real. It is a product of thoughts you create. Now, do not misunderstand me. Danger is very real, but fear is a choice. So I'll talk a little bit more about this. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail. There's a woman, we've never met her actually, but heard she's done some good stuff, Amy Edmondson. I guess she created this, sorry, just a screenshot, right? So psychological safety against accountability. And obviously when you have low accountability, low safety, it's the apathy zone. I like to call it the complacency zone or complacent zone. This is where I think the worst thing is, this is the worst, and this is what I would call death. Even though most people think anxiety is where death is, this is far worse. And we'll talk you through how this is the #1 zone you have to find a way to avoid, the complacency zone. Now the comfort zone is where you feel no accountability but great safety, right? Or you feel high accountability, low safety is the anxiety zone. It's like to call it the terror zone. And then of course the top is the learning zone. Otherwise, some people call it the courage zone. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. A couple other things to help kind of ground you, this especially for a lot of people in education. I think as a child, and probably even now today, isn't this the worst nightmare? You're picked last, right? You just know you're not as good as everybody else, so when they go and pick who wants to be on whose team, you're the very last person they pick. You're the last one they go to for advice. You're the last one they turn to for any type of aid or help. It is absolutely one of, I think, the worst things that can happen as a human being. Now, that's an idea that I think we all share. How about if I told you that might be also one of the best ways to train them then? Imagine making people last, making them terrorized, and then training them through that to become stronger. So that's some of what we'll take you through as well, which you think is crazy, but we've tried. I'm telling you, everything we've tried all the normal stuff. The stuff that's in the books and that's everywhere, and didn't work, which is what made us kind of explore beyond that. And when you build eventually a no-fire policy and you realize, I can't get rid of them, right? Then you're like, well, I need to try something and no one's tried because it just ain't working, right? And that's what led to a lot of some of the innovations we have. We found that the act of becoming aware of who you truly are today, remember you can change, right? But who you are today is very much like grieving death. The exact same process occurs. In death, they say you go through 4 stages. First you deny, then you get angry, then you get sad, and eventually you're at acceptance. It means the pain doesn't go away, but you're normal enough now that you can go on with life. Denial usually starts with not me, no, you're talking about somebody else, that's definitely not me. Anger is, oh my God, your issues, how dare you tell me my issues? Let me tell you about your issues, have you looked at yourself? The sadness is, oh my God, I'm awful, why do you even keep me around? This is the worst thing, I should, disappear. And then acceptance is when you have now gone through all those stages. If you had to graph it in terms of where emotional energy is spent versus not spent, I think someone asked, or a lot of people asked, like 10x Obo, is it a requirement to cry? No, it's not. Is it a requirement to curse and get angry? No, it's not. But you'll find when authenticity shows up and you break through something someone's been hiding or covering up forever, denial and acceptance is when the emotion, if it's like a burner, right? It's like on low, it's on simmer. When you're getting angry or sad, it goes up. The emotional energy is being spent. And you'll see that when anger usually reaches these crucible tipping points, you start to see like real big cuss words come out. When sadness reaches its tipping point or its crucible, you start to see snots come out and just physical shaking as they cry. And that's when we know, oh my God, we're close to the next stage. And oftentimes people get close to the stage and they back off. They get close to the stage, they back. Or other people say, no, come on, you're not that bad, go back. And so you'll find people around us make it worse by constantly preventing you from moving to the right stage. Why we use the graph up above is this. The past 6 months is your trend. It's very indicative of what the next 6 months look like. But what we all like to believe is, well, although the past looks like that in my career and what I've done, the next 6 months is going to look very different, right? So point A is where I should be, is where I believe I'm heading, yet to get them to see the truth, the reality, if the past 6 months looks like that, the next 6 months, this is where you're actually headed. That's a very hard thing to accept. I don't know if you've heard the phrase, the MVP in every organization is the employee who hasn't started. Is the employee who hasn't started. The MVP is the person who hasn't been promoted, who hasn't started, who hasn't got in the arena. Everything we're doing here, if you haven't tried it, you're gonna think you know how to do it until you try it. So in the beginning, it all seems great and easy. Business plans, before you actually start day one of your business, seems fantastic, you can raise money. But the minute you start, once you get past the starting point is when all the real problems show up. It's when suddenly flatlining shows up. It's now when someone has data on you to tell you, your plan was so great, and I believed you, except when I look back just the last couple weeks alone, if not months, it's clearly showing me you can't get it done. The stock market, if you look at stocks the way they're valued, the past, all the brochures say the past is not an indication of future performance, but everyone's analyzing the stock based on past performance, on management's guidance of earnings and how they hit it or exceeded it. I mean, everyone looks at the past and the more recent past to determine what the future looks like. And we're all scored, whether you realize it or not, like the stock market. The stock of a company on the public stock exchanges is valuing the future of where you're headed. And this is kind of the empowering insight. No matter how much you were flatlining and screwed up and was just a failure and a disaster, to be honest, it doesn't matter as much as you think. Because they're judging you, scoring you based on where you're heading. If you change where you're headed, what we call trending, people will pick you. Stocks get picked. This is the key insight. So if you're really depressed about the past, it's more about getting to acceptance, because if you get acceptance, you can start changing your trend. This is an individual, some of you may recognize him, probably not. His name is Billy the Kid. So he was an Olympic ski racer, and I had the fortune of being invited to learn and train with him. There's a ski program in Vail, where they bring in like all these executives, and the New York Stock Exchange is a sponsor, so they brought myself as well as Greg. And then they do these like races. So it's like, all us corporate, not so athletic people being trained by Olympic athletes to then go and race against each other, and you get handicapped and all this stuff. So it's part of this perk, right? They're trying to share. So I'm a team of 4, I get Billy the Kid, and I'm thinking, all right, and I'm a pretty good skier. I was a ski patrol in junior high, so I like to consider myself pretty good. I'm like thinking, this guy's gonna improve my skiing at a whole different level, right? And I've never really ski raced, and I was like, all right, this guy's gonna make my skiing so good. So I was like, Billy, give me the tips to win. I gotta win this thing, right? I'm gonna be on like ESPN 8. Like I want my family to see this, record this, see me go through the blazing line and just beat everyone. And what he says is, this is what I want you to do, Charlie. He's like, when you're waiting for all of us to catch up to you, just stand like this. When you're waiting in the ski lift before you go up and you're waiting for us, stand like this. He kept saying, stand like this. And I was like, okay, that's great, but can you teach me how to win, right? He's like, just do this. And I was so frustrated. And I was like telling the New York Stock Exchange guys, this guy's a dud, right? I heard he got bronze or silver, didn't even get gold. Like, I mean, this is awful, right? And he kept saying, when you ski and you have to go past the poles, you're supposed to be standing like this when you turn, but it's not the natural feeling. We tend to go like this when we turn. And so practicing this until it feels so normal, so regular, what he called like breathing, you will learn to win. And I was like, this is just god-awful, right? So I left the whole thing. I didn't win, you know. I thought he was awful. I was like, I'm not going to this event again. Then one day we're doing this Academy presentation. I like just literally was looking up practice and you know, habits and whatnot, and his picture comes up on Google Images, and the picture that comes up is this. And I started cracking up saying, God, I was the arrogant idiot who just didn't listen to probably what is the most brilliant advice of how to improve ski racing, which is to practice this until it feels like breathing. And I thought he was giving me no help.